that he thinks he owns it. He thinks he's Pink Floyd. Just like that, the war begins. But before Pink Floyd became a battlefield between David Gilmour and Roger Waters, there was another name, Syd Barrett, the man who built the dream, lost himself inside it, and left a wound the band would never really heal. This is the story of how four art students created sound out of madness, how fame broke their leader, and how ego nearly broke the rest. So here's the question. Was Pink Floyd's genius always tied to its self-destruction? Pink Floyd weren't supposed to become legends. In 1965, they were just four London art students with weird haircuts and even weirder ideas about music. Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright started off calling themselves the T-Set. Yes, the T-Set. Then Barrett, the group's whimsical frontman and art school visionary, had a better idea. The Pink Floyd sound, named after two old bluesmen, Pink Anderson and Floyd Council. Barrett didn't just name the band, he defined it. He painted with sound. Fuzzy guitars, spacey reverb, lyrics about cats, gnomes, and interstellar overdrives. London's underground scene ate it up. They weren't just playing music, they were summoning colors. By 1967, they were the darlings of London psychedelia. Arnold Lane hit the charts, and their debut album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, was hailed as a cosmic masterpiece. Pink Floyd was poised to become the British answer to the psychedelic revolution. But fame doesn't mix well with acid, and Syd Barrett was taking both in industrial doses. At first, his behavior was quirky, staring blankly on stage, detuning his guitar mid-song, or playing one note for 15 minutes, just to see what happens. Soon it wasn't quirky, it was heartbreaking. Friends said he'd stare into mirrors for hours, he'd vanish for days. On TV performances, he'd just stop playing altogether. By 1968, the band had a problem. Syd was the creative genius, but he was also falling apart. Enter David Gilmour, an old friend of Syd's and a gifted guitarist. He joined first to cover Barrett's missed gigs, then permanently as Syd faded away. There wasn't a dramatic firing. One day the band's van simply drove past Syd's house on the way to a show, and that was it. Barrett's departure was tragic, but it forced the band to evolve. They were left with no frontman, no clear direction, and a ghost haunting every chord. Myth versus reality number one. Myth, Pink Floyd was a democracy. Reality, it was a kingdom, and Roger Waters was king. Without Syd, Roger Waters stepped forward, not just as bassist, but as conceptual leader. He wasn't as flamboyant as Barrett, but he was driven. Waters wanted to make music that said something about greed, madness, war, and isolation. The result? Dark Side of the Moon, 1973. A 43-minute journey through the human psyche. A concept album so precise that engineers still study its mix like it's sacred text. It sold over 45 million copies and stayed on the Billboard charts for about 15 years straight, a record even the Beatles never touched. Then came Wish You Were Here, 1975, a record that wasn't just inspired by Syd Barrett, it was Syd Barrett. Songs like Shine on You, Crazy Diamond were love letters to their lost friend. During one recording session, a bald, heavier man silently wandered into Abbey Road's studio. No one recognized him at first. Then someone whispered, "That's Syd." They hadn't seen him in years. He smiled, said a few quiet words, and disappeared. The band stood speechless. Roger Waters was reportedly moved to tears. It was one of the most haunting moments in rock history. But underneath all that brilliance, something darker was growing. By the late 70s, Roger Waters had become Pink Floyd's captain, and he wasn't letting go of the wheel. Each album became more personal, more political, more Waters-driven. Animals, 1977, was a furious critique of greed and power, inspired by Animal Farm. It was also the first Pink Floyd album without any songwriting credits for keyboardist Richard Wright. The band was splintering. Waters demanded perfection. Gilmour, with his soaring guitar tone and melodic instincts, quietly pushed back. Their creative tension made masterpieces, but their egos made the studio unbearable. During The Wall, 1979, the tension exploded. Wright was fired. Gilmour and Waters barely spoke. And yet somehow, out of that chaos, came one of rock's greatest achievements, a concept album about isolation and trauma that mirrored the band's own story. Ironically, though Wright was fired, he returned for the live shows as a salaried musician, which made him the only member to actually profit from the massively expensive tour. That's what you call poetic justice. By 1983, with the final cut, the cracks were permanent. Gilmour called it Roger Waters' solo album in disguise. Waters called it the end. And then he left. Waters assumed that meant Pink Floyd was finished. He even tried to legally dissolve the band in 1986, calling it a spent force creatively. Gilmour disagreed. He and drummer Nick Mason refused to fold, determined that Pink Floyd could survive without its most outspoken member. In 1987, they released a momentary lapse of reason under the Pink Floyd name, the first album without Roger Waters. Critics were divided. Some missed Waters' lyrical bite, others praised Gilmour's renewed sense of melody and atmosphere. But the fans spoke loudest. The record went multi-platinum, selling over 10 million copies worldwide and restoring Pink Floyd to arena-filling status. The accompanying world tour stretched across 2 years, drew more than 4 million fans, and became one of the highest-grossing tours of the decade. A legal battle followed as Waters tried to stop them from using the name, but the courts sided with Gilmour and Mason. The verdict cemented their right to continue as Pink Floyd. Waters lost the case, yet the feud only intensified. For years afterward, both men avoided even saying each other's names in interviews. Still, Gilmour kept the ship sailing. In 1994 came The Division Bell, a lush, introspective album built around themes of communication and reconciliation. It debuted at #1 in the UK, the US, and 8 other countries, eventually selling more than 12 million copies. The subsequent Division Bell tour broke attendance records, with the 1995 concert film Pulse, capturing Pink Floyd's new era power. Meanwhile, Roger Waters forged his own path, releasing Radio Chaos and Amused to Death, both acclaimed for their political edge and concept album depth. The divide was now permanent. 2 visions of Pink Floyd existing in parallel, one emotional and expansive, the other sharp-edged and analytical. 2 planets sharing the same orbit, forever reflecting the same distant light. Myth versus reality, #2. Myth. Waters left peacefully. Reality. He tried to sink the ship, and Gilmour rebuilt it on open water. For decades, fans dreamed of a reunion that never came. Until 2005. For the first time in 24 years, Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Richard Wright, and Nick Mason stood on stage together as Pink Floyd. They performed Breathe, Money, Wish You Were Here, and Comfortably Numb. Before Wish You Were Here, Waters said, "It was for everyone who's not here, and particularly, of course, for Syd." The performance was broadcast to nearly 3 billion viewers worldwide. For 15 minutes, all the bitterness seemed to dissolve. Gilmour later told the BBC, "It was a great moment, but it doesn't mean much more than that. We came together for something good." Waters agreed, saying he felt a sense of closure, of healing, but added that it didn't erase decades of hurt. On stage, they smiled, even embraced. Off stage, there were friendly handshakes, quiet jokes, maybe a touch of forgiveness. For the world, it was magic, a glimpse of what Pink Floyd once was, and what it could have been if egos hadn't collided. After the show, the press exploded with reunion rumors. Promoters dangled enormous offers, one worth around $150 million for a full US tour. Gilmour shot it down almost instantly. He told The Guardian, "It's completely impractical. I'm done with that part of my life." Waters responded with a laugh, telling interviewers, "I'd do it for charity again, sure, but it's like sleeping with your ex," best remembered fondly. Not even money on that scale could patch the fracture. That, more than anything, said it all. When Richard Wright passed away in 2008, The hope of another full reunion died with him. Gilmour later said in a tribute that Wright's keyboard textures were the sound that held everything together. The band's quietest member, and its most ethereal voice was gone. Still, the feud never cooled. In 2020, Waters uploaded a 5-minute video to social media, accusing Gilmour of blocking him from Pink Floyd's website and platforms. David thinks he owns it. He thinks he is Pink Floyd. He complained that his solo work was excluded while, in his words, Polly Sampson gets to promote her novels. The clip went viral. Old wounds suddenly reopened for a new generation of fans. Then came the Animals remix drama. A remaster of the 1977 classic had been finished for years, but held back over a dispute about new liner note text. Waters wanted an essay he'd written included. Gilmour refused. In 2021, Gilmour commented, "A very lovely Animals remix has been done, but someone's digging his heels." Waters countered online, releasing the disputed notes himself and calling the disagreement ridiculous. The remix finally appeared in 2022 without the notes. 45 years after Animals first hit stores, they were still arguing about it. By February 2023, the tension erupted again. After Waters made a series of controversial political statements, novelist and lyricist Polly Sampson, Gilmour's wife and longtime collaborator, posted a scathing thread on Twitter, calling Waters anti-Semitic to his rotten core, a Putin apologist, a lying, thieving, hypocritical, misogynistic megalomaniac. Gilmour publicly endorsed her post, adding, "Every word demonstrably true." Waters denied the accusations, calling them wildly inaccurate. But the damage was done. Nearly 60 years since their first rehearsal in a London flat, the world's most influential psychedelic band was still split in two. The feud, it seemed, had outlived the band itself. So what do we make of it all? From the outside, Pink Floyd's story looks like genius and madness. Syd Barrett's fragile mind, Roger Waters' ego, and David Gilmour's quiet defiance. But at its core, it's about balance. Every great band walks a tightrope between chaos and control. Syd was the chaos. Roger tried to control it. David tried to restore harmony. And that tension created art that transcended all of them. Without Barrett, there'd be no dream. Without Waters, no vision. Without Gilmour, no heart. Pink Floyd were never meant to be peaceful. They were meant to echo. So whose version of Pink Floyd do you side with? The visionary poet Roger Waters? The soulful craftsman David Gilmour? Or the lost dreamer who started it all, Syd Barrett? Drop your thoughts below. But maybe, just maybe, the real answer is that no one owns the music now. I'll catch you next time. Shine on, you crazy diamonds.